like the dog, like he kicks the dirt up. I could have fought you. So that was the end of it. You know? But the entire distance, he was keeping connection with China, what's his name?
Aristotle.
Aristotle. He had messages going back, telling him things he was discovering, asking for why are we doing this, so many things. You know, Aristotle was behind it. You know? So, community development, out of 1,000 people, 900 will be shooters, 90 will be righteous, 9 will be shaktis, and 1 Brahmin. Very rare. You know, yeah. And Prabhupada was trying to make Brahmins. You saw, that's the head. If you got the head, then they can engage the Shaktis. When I've been doing projects, even in India, so many people want to come forward and ask, basically is, what do you want us to do? We're district forestry officer, this people, good people. But none of them, you know, want to talk about the strategy, the perspective. You work that out. Once you got all that worked out, the strategy and everything else, you just toss us into the battle, right? So different levels of people and entering in different ways like that. You know? So that's like, you know, it's a big topic, but to me it's very nice that this is the community, the example, you know. And then we need an opportunity for different people to engage in different ways, right? Prabhupada says that, here's the question, could Nanda Maharaj read and write? If you get the wrong answer, you can't have breakfast. How many people think Nanda Maharaj could read and write? Raise your hand. How many people think Nanda Maharaj could not read and write? Raise your hand. You know, you guys could have breakfast. He was a Vaishya, right? Prabhupada said he would engage some educated fool doing it for him. How many software engineers here are working? We pay you this salary, and out of your work, we could produce 7 times as much profit, right?
Yeah.
So he said, but he didn't know how to read and write. Why should he? What to speak of the the gopis? All these girls, they didn't know how to read and write. Chitraleka and some of them, but most of them, what were they afraid of? What were the gopis afraid of when Krishna left? Krishna left and went to Dwarka.
Sophisticated girls, sophisticated girls in Mathura.
You meet all the sophisticated girls there, right? Right? Country girls. And these girls in Mathura, they can do crossword puzzles. That was, you know, he's never going to remember us, country girls, after he meets these, like, you know, sophisticated ladies in Mathura and everything else. It's very interesting, the mellows and everything else, contrast. So Prabhupada said, you know, Nanda Maharaj, in Vaishya, he couldn't read and write, what do you speak of the gopis? You know? He said, but they knew everything about the universe because they would go to lectures and puppet shows organized by the Brahmins. So that's Brahmins, you're putting on media, right? You know? One opportunity, Navadvip should become famous for its cinematography, right? Turning out movies, right? Okay, this set is for outside stuff, this is for inside stuff, you know, yeah, and then you can do it. Your overhead is so minimal. You have a whole community of people working on scripts and ideas and this kind of stuff. So in fact, what I'm trying to do, I can do it, I don't know. What I'm supporting, I don't need anything anymore. Yeah, is trying to develop a department of media resources at Navadvip Dham. You know, and we have already about $15,000 worth of professional equipment that we bought to do our previous movies. And we have a director of photography. We have a media distributor. Yeah. We're working on cameramen. And we have a good plan, everything else. And it's come to a point where the temple president is involved. He's sold out to the idea, but he's busy with a lot of other stuff. You know, Sharanga is fully occupied with the congregational work, right? The congregational things, festivals, anything in the temple. That's a full-time job. Add the Gurukula and add the restaurant. You know, yeah, what you're talking about is so important. Department of Media Resources. Our director of photography from Peru came before come on a contract. He's becoming a devotee. He likes the books of philosophy. At Christmas in Peru, he buys all his books for his children and grandchildren. When he's with devotees, strict vegetarian. Anyway, he was willing to do a 2-year contract. He says, the results, right written down. And he says, for example, that the primary school should be turning out 1 to 3 movies every semester, right? The primary school should be working, and then, when you're focusing on that, you're, making this a sankirtan, communication, and different people fit in different ways. And so it's a wonderful way to organize, to stimulate and, stimulate and organize the primary school. Start turning on movies in the primary school. And the next stage is somebody has to be able to get them up on social media. We have devotees like that. My one disciple, Jagat Guru, he worked for CNN, had 2 contracts to go in. He's a farm family, right? His family is farmers to the cousins and to the great-grandparents. Yeah. They came and stayed with us in Peru when we were doing something, at a big kind of a farmhouse type place. And one section of the house had a separate entrance and stuff, so they stayed there. He and his wife and 2 little girls. The first day, his little daughter, like 6 years old, she went out walking, and the rooster came after her. Right? All these farm animals, and the rooster kind of chased her away, like that. Well, she's a farm girl, and so she ran for protection. But the next day, she came out with a stick, right? And she had it out with the rooster, and the rooster lost. Yeah. So she's used to living on a farm. You know when to retreat. But she lost the battle. Tomorrow we're going to. So they're perfect people. For example, to come to Navadvip Dham, live in the Goshala. He can go to get a master's degree at the university and meet everybody in cinematography. He needs that. He has a temple in Santiago. He knows media, social media. He has no problem whatsoever getting new people coming. Janmashtami, Gopurnima, 25, 30, 40, 50 new people coming. But he found out the problem is once they come to the festival, reception. There's nobody to process them properly. When they write on the social media, I went there, this and that. So it's a whole sequence of everybody fitting together. So ISKCON, what I see, we have so many qualified things. It's like now we're coming to the point where we need to be able to pull all these things together, right? We have so many villages. You see, we have so many ISKCON villages. Los Angeles is a village, right? How many people within a certain distance? It's almost a town. And now we're talking about having our own town, right? Not just living in the neighborhood. Okay, right? Okay. If you want to get elected as a state representative here, you've got to get the vote from. And maybe at some point you can bring our own parent out. So it's a very natural process. And I kind of organized my lecture here. Okay. So, Prabhupada, ISKCON, building communities. The gopis are milking cows, carrying on their lives. And while they're doing this, they're good citizens of the community. Nanda Maharaj's village, right? They got their position in the Varna ashram system, and they're good citizens. They take their milk products and they barter for them. Would you like to barter with the gopis over the price of yogurt? One time I was in Bhakti Bringa Maharaj. The first time I went to India in 1978, and he was Ayogyapati then, right?
Yeah.
So he was in charge of arranging for all the big festivals for cooking. And he was sitting there in the Gurukula place, and he was talking with one Brijbasi guy about the price of paneer for the festival. He wanted so many kilos, like that for the festival. And the Brijbasi guy wanted 24 rupees per kilo some time ago. He wanted to pay 18. Any Vaishyas here? So they were going back and forth, 18, 24, 19, 23. They got down to the point where I think he wanted to pay 21 And the Brisbane guy was stuck at 22. He wouldn't back down, you know. So funny, Bucky, bring him our eyes, a little buddy. Just jumped up and kissed him on the cheek, grabbed him and kissed him. And the guy said, okay. And Yogapati looked at me and he said, Vrindavan is the land of lawless love. Vrindavan is the land of lawless love. Yeah. So that, this is the Vaishyas. They're Vaishya girls, and they're super expert at bargaining and all this kind of marketing and all this kind of stuff. And look at it. Are they chaste? Yeah, they're chaste, right?
Yeah.
That's the first level. This is the song of the flute. The first level is the gopis are sitting there carrying on their lives, and they're following Varna Ashram, they belong to the community, everything else. But then they hear, what do they hear? Everybody hears, right? Krishna's flute has this unusual property that it kind of, floats all over the universe. He doesn't play loud, he plays well. So then you hear the sound of the flute, right? Then what happens?
You need everything.
They go on with their external process, but they start talking to their friends, right? So what does ISKCON mean? ISKCON is an institution, right? Who owns this property? It's a corporation, right? Part of community building means that everybody understands legally how it's set up and what's happening and what our role is. And it should be simple, and it should be transparent. To a certain degree. Well, at least on that level. On the institutional, legal level, it should be transparent. Everybody knows, what's going on. Okay. And behind that, but that's, it's going on, but what is it? We have ourselves, we have a 501c3 nonprofit educational corporation registered in the state of Tennessee with the IRS exemption. You understand exactly what it is. Who controls that? Who's the ultimate controlling power? The board of directors, yeah. The board of directors, they vote on the officers. This is why I'm trying to, I talked to Sesha. Sesha, who was involved with the New York law case, which was unbelievable loss of energy, time, and everything else. I'm going to be careful what I say here, because now we're talking about politics. I'm a sannyasi. But I was looking at what had happened, and finally I was hearing about it, and I was kind of involved, and I saw what had happened. And then I told Sesha, I said, boy, if they just had their annual board of directors meeting, had filed the form with the Secretary of State, and filed their form with the IRS, none of this would have happened. And he said, Hanuman Swami, you can say that over and over again 6 times. Yeah. It's that simple. If you're going to, don't start a corporation unless you've got at least 6 people whose heart is into it. Otherwise, it'll be a waste of time. You've got 6 people, 5, who agree on something. You got a vision. Okay, then you can start a corporation. And it's simple. Every year you have what the officers did, where the money went, everything else. And you say, that's cool. Okay. Then they elect new officers, new directors. And if they want to, then they give them specific tasks and stuff, what to do. Okay. And then you can't have people seizing the corporation, claiming this and that and everything else. And you file with the Secretary of State, right? Very simple. And if you're making less than $50,000, you report to the IRS as a that's all it is. We're making less than $50,000. This is who we are. Thanks. We don't care about you. And then there are specific details if you're a nonprofit corporation, if you're a church corporation, and the other side in our sole proprietorship, unincorporated association, partnerships, which is subsection C, partnerships. And even in the Manu Samhita describes partnerships and stuff, and, rights and responsibilities. Right? And then you get a corporation, right? So this is what needs to be clear. Community building on this level, we're acting like the gopis. We understand what's happening. I pay this, I own this, this is my rights. You can't do this, I can do that. Should be transparent, it should be simple. And we're talking about that. People, look at the way the Hare Krishnas do their business and their management. One time, Hansaduta had the World Trade Corporation International, Swan Galleries. He had the Swan Galleries art business in San Francisco. We had ISKCON in the Bay Area, which has something like 8 properties or something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 5 houses in the temple property. And I was a treasurer. Right? How many telephones did we have? How many gas and electric bills? Then we had the Mount Kailas farm, right? And all within this little complex. And also, the money was being invested in Portland and up to Seattle. And I was kind of the zonal legal officer. And if you know Hansaduta at all, he was almost the exact opposite of bureaucracy. He was bureaucratic. He was just like, wild and everything else. And so anyway, try to be a manager, try to be a manager in the middle of all this stuff. One time, Bobby came over to get my gun, right? And after Hansaduta arrived, there was this whole conflict over his position as a leader. The Mother's Party was collecting $1 million a year and rumors of illicit relations, not the treasury, and everything else. Mr. Black. So anyway, I was back in the treasury room, and Charu, the temple president's wife, my Bobby, came back and says, Hanuman, you're the treasurer, do you have a gun? And I said, yeah, I got a pistol, it's a 38. Sometimes when I take $35,000 to the bank for the Mother's Party's collection, I carry it. He said, well, we need it. I said, okay, well, here it is. It hasn't got a safety. So the gun went off. Then I found out that Hansaduta was Surabi Swami, went to the next door place where Jivananda was there. Before Jivananda had been a devotee, he'd been a bank robber. He'd been in prison. And so, of course, he became the Sankirtan leader, right? And he was good. Mother Nada was collecting about $1,000 a day. Back about 1970s or something, 1974 or something. After that was Divya Dristy. She was coming in at about $600 a day. And the rest of the Mataji's were coming in at $400 a day. With inflation, we're running about $1,000 in 1978. How much now?
1978, $1,000 today.
Yeah. About 10 times as much. Yeah. So one Mataji was collecting $10,000 a day. Yeah. This is the Mother's Party. Fired up. He had to discover all this corruption was going on. Hansaduta, before he came to be our zonal guru, he was hearing about the Mother's Party, all this collection, all this pure. And he commented, being very intuitive, one man with 12 women, they're having sex, and they're having a lot of it. He says, no, it's pure. They're worshiping Lord Nityananda. Yeah. Varna Ashram? Okay, anyway. So he showed up there, and there's a controversy what his position is, and so forth, so on. And Jivananda was involved in it. So anyway, they got the gun, he put it under his dhoti. He and Surabi Swami went over and confronted Jivananda in the house next door, which was the Mother's Ashram. And he just challenged him and everything else in a criminal before. Jivananda, before he was a devotee, one time with a friend, they pulled off the freeway, pulled into a gas station. The kid came to put the gas in, putting the gas in. He opened the trunk up, pulled a shotgun out, put it in the kid's face, and said, give me all the money. And the kid was shocked. At that exact moment, a highway patrol car came off with two police officers to get gas. And there's Jivananda turning the shotgun in this guy's face. The guy was looking there. He turns it, tosses it to the guy, and said, it's not loaded, just kidding. And so, the guy's going, what are you shooting me, mister? The police are looking. They pull off. He takes the shotgun back and says it is loaded and robs the guy. So he was a Sankirtan leader. Anyway, yeah. So finally, Hansaduta is pushing him and everything else, and he just collapsed. And he said, God, save me. You know, I'm skimming off $500 a day from the collection. I have a heroin addiction. I'm giving them vitamins, which are amphetamines. And out of 12 of them, I'm eternally married for 3. You have eternal transcendental marriage, you know, like that. So I'm having whatever relations like that. And he said, so you just give it all up and just surrender, and I'll save you like Prabhupada saved other people. Okay. Community building. And then he said, we're sitting in the room with him, Surabi, and what's his name, Jivananda. Then Hansaduta says, call them in. Said, what do you mean? He says, open the door, all the women are sitting there, you know, listening. Yeah. Intelligent, right? Atriya Rishi said, of all my GBC godbrothers, Hansaduta is probably the most intelligent, but it's not his intelligence I worry about. It's his ethics and morality. So the next morning, I was a treasurer, and Jivananda was going to take sannyas, right? You're going to be from a heroin addict with 12 wives and everything else. This is Hansaduta. We're the new Prabhupadas. Prabhupada did this, I'm going to do it. Tomorrow we're having a fire sacrifice, and Jivananda's taking sannyas. Okay. So the head of the women came to me as a treasurer and wanted money for 125 yards of white cloth, right? They all decided, okay, he's going to take sannyas, we're all going to become widows. So, okay, some money for 125 yards of white cloth. Anyway, it goes on. It gets even more wild than this. I mean, the same day, unbelievable. Anyway, the gopis, right? They're good citizens. They're carrying on. They belong to ISKCON. They support it. So who else do we have to support ISKCON? We've got to support the GBC. We've got to support the system Prabhupada set up. And if there's a problem with the GBC, we've got to be brave enough and so on to challenge them, right? Yeah, which is tough. Yeah. So anyway, the gopis are at that level. Next thing they heard the sound of the flutes. And within ISKCON, Prabhupada and Vedashamrita, everything talks about, ISKCON is a society of friends, right? It's the next level. You got your friends. Maybe some guy's chauffeur, he's a competent guy, he always has a big job in the government. You can take minister of this thing, minister of that thing, do this, take that project. So he's in politics, you know? But he has a chauffeur who's been a chauffeur for 20 years, and they're close. You know? So after Sunday, the chauffeur picks him up, and he says, "Oh, Bob, before we go back to home, just take a 15 minutes to the park and stuff, or relax a little bit." And the chauffeur's asking him, "Sir, what happened today?" And did that person say that again? "Sir, you shouldn't put up with that. You should have told him that." So this is Dasya Ras with some Sakya Ras, and that's Hanuman. Hanuman's above Vaikuntha. He's in Dasya Ras. That's mixed with some, feelings of Sakya. Yeah. So there, that's, in ISKCON, you have your friends. Your institutional position may be GBC secretary, or maybe mother, right? And so you got your institutional position. Yeah, we got to take care of that. That's what distinguishes Prabhupada from other gurus. Prabhupada's godbrothers said we couldn't do that. We know the philosophy, this and that, but Prabhupada could make it a practical thing in the West. So yeah, we have our institution, our positions, but within that we have our friendships. And that's what we learn how to develop. Dadati, Praktigunati, Bhuyam, Akyati, Chiti, giving and receiving gifts, confidential. It's a whole science. Prabhupada explains how to cultivate friendships. So the gopis were milking away, and this, Radharani starts talking to Subal, on the side, so that institutionally you don't hear what's happening. But in the subtext you say, okay, you give me that Sankirtan guy, I'll send you three pujaris. So they have their friends. Different relationships are developing in terms of rasas, things like this. So we have to have friends in the institution. When you're building a community, it's not just enough to be a part of the institution, to have a plan. People need to have friends. unless you're friends and stuff, you develop those relationships. Yeah. And the final level is they're hearing the sound of Krishna's flute, and every single gopi is personally relating to that individually. Maybe the night before, one little gopi for the first time was with Krishna, and then there's a few other people, and they started composing a song, right? And now Krishna's playing that same song the next day. How do you think she feels? Yeah. So every gopi has an individual, unique relationship with Krishna. If you maybe through, except for Radharani, it's through so many parampara, right? But each of those is transparent. They don't hang on to anything. You know, Raghunath Das came. How was he connected to Lord Chaitanya? Yeah, and he was quite happy in that position. Mahaprabhu is just too much. Right? You know, the gopis come and Krishna just raises his eyebrows a little bit. That's all he has to do. One week. They're mumbling, right? Yeah, Krishna is just, he's handsome, he has good friends, he's good at sports, he has all these qualities, unbelievable. But there's one gopi who can put him in his place. Yeah, so things get really tough. You know, everybody, gopis run behind Radharani. She says, hey fella. Yeah, it's a whole society, and we're echoing this. So each of us has to have a personal relationship with Srila Prabhupada in this time. Yeah? I got Prabhupada's book, right? So I didn't first read Prabhupada. I got the Krishna book, volume 2. And I was reading it, and I didn't know who the author was, but I knew who he was, kind of, what he was talking about. And it was like, wow, it was a really strange experiences, you know? So I was associating with Prabhupada. I kind of, formed an idea of the author and who he was. And I started going to the temple after 1 year of reading the Krishna book. And then all these strange things happened in the temple, the devotees and everything else. But really, because I read the Krishna book, I kind of knew, what the reality was behind all this. And then I gradually began to understand who Prabhupada was as a guru and everything else, and different relationships. And finally I was initiated, and Prabhupada already had, how many, I was initiated by a letter that came from Bombay. The same letter by Shika and Sashikala and Vatsal got second initiation. There was also Sakrit, and who else? Sakrit, Jivananda also got it. Yeah, it's interesting. Jivananda, who I mentioned before, our Sankirtan leader, it said his name is Jamie, so Prabhupada sent back the name of a woman for his initiation name. They said, no, he's a guy. These names is the whole thing why people end up with certain names. These names, in many cases, they're very, really. The name is under the internal potency. In some cases, really heavy. So anyway, that I remember going through all this stuff, and temple presidents coming and going, and people screaming and yelling at myself, my senses, and what is ISKCON, the society. One thing was introduced at that point was you have no personal relationship with Srila Prabhupada. Your only relationship is with the temple president, right? So you have to accept the temple president as Prabhupada. Ideas were there. So I remember at one point I was still working outside and living in the temple. So I was walking up the hill in San Francisco, thinking about all this stuff, going off to work. And I had this final conclusion. Okay, it doesn't matter what happens, this way, that way, this way, that way. I know enough about what Srila Prabhupada wants me to do, and I'm going to do that. Right? He wants me to chant 16 nice rounds. He wants me to follow the 4 principles strictly. And so on. So. At that point, it was like Prabhupada was like, go. Yeah. So we need this, right, personal relationship. And look at Prabhupada's Murti, Yeah. And of course, we don't bother Prabhupada. If you get too close to 3 things, if you get too close to 3 things, a king, a fire, or Brahmana, you're going to get burned. If you get too close to these three things, they come to assassinate the king, yeah, you're too close. Yeah. So if you get too close to a king, a fire, or a Brahmana, spiritual master, Prabhupada, you're going to get burned. You know any stories of people who got too close to Prabhupada? And they described what happened? Yeah, I mean, they couldn't, so many times, they couldn't sleep for 2 days afterwards. Like, Trivikram Swami, now he's in Trivikram, I guess. He said one time that Tamal Krishna and Prabhupada were arguing, and Prabhupada would, he would like agitate Tamal Krishna Maharaj to argue with him, because after you argue with Prabhupada, anybody else is easy. So life comes from lies. What is the scientist? And then after arguing with Prabhupada, you can go out and argue with any scientist. But then they were carrying on, and Trivikram Swami at that time felt that Tamal Krishna Maharaj was being too aggressive with Prabhupada. They said, Tamal, you shouldn't be so aggressive with Prabhupada. And they said, Prabhupada turned to him and said, shut up and mind your own business. So, if you get too close to a king, a fire, or a Brahmana, you're going to get burned. But if you get too far away, you will derive no benefit. Trying to find it. So, finding your distance from Prabhupada, and knowing that at any time, if you need to, you have a personal connection with him. When Prabhupada was in San Francisco, Berkeley, right, came there, I always remember this, one reporter asked him, Swamiji, what will happen to your movement when you die? I heard this from Prabhupada's lips. So now you can hear it from my lips. Prabhupada says one should act as he hears from the lips of his spiritual master. And of course, this is very difficult for rhythmics. Okay. So the reporter asked, Swamiji, what will happen to your movement when you die? And Prabhupada, with vigor, said, I will never die. I will live forever in my books. So it's a fact. There's so many stories, you get into it, of people, in the last few years, getting Prabhupada's books, reading them, and developing a totally personal relationship. And then they got involved with ISKCON afterwards. But they never lost that. It's service attitude. So I would say one of the fundamental principles of our community development is we are a community. This is the definition of Christian community. The definition of Christian community is a community centered around the Bible, the books. That's from the very beginning, what it means, like the gospel. We're centered around the gospel. So, centered around the books. Good morning and evening classes, interesting classes, stimulating, practical. And the more practical, the better they become. And then, of course, it will expand to media, internal media, plays, dramas. Every night you come back and you have some, you take a bath, whatever, go to the temple, and you see some drama or something else like that. And all day long you were talking about it. Bhima did that, and you should have done that. And your whole consciousness becomes a story. And then simultaneously, so books. You're thinking books is the basis of community development. Of course, there's so many things in different ways. It's kind of what I'm saying is, building a community means developing the institution within ISKCON, within society. It means developing a community of friendly, personal relationships. And your personal relationships may not even be friendly, right? Everybody says, Chanaka Pandit Prabhupada goes all the way back, it's better to have a wise man for an enemy than it is to have a friend for a fool. Everybody says it. Shakespeare, Marcus Aurelius, Prabhupada, Chanaka, everybody. It's better to have a wise man for an enemy than it is to have a friend for a fool for a friend. So you may have in the community, you may have people you argue with all the time. But you're glad they're there. You both think you're in touch. This guy we wanted, he saved our necks so many times. So, friendship, personal relationships, institution, and then everybody gets a personal relationship with Prabhupada. Through his books, through the disciples, through his Morty, through the Super Soul. But yeah, it's there. Prabhupada's your guru. Yeah, and in proper proportion. So, any questions or comments? I left my hearing aid in the room, so if you want to ask any questions, make any comments. At the top, we're talking about a 1965 Indian telephone, long distance. Not. Yes, okay.
I had a question, but I kind of forgot it, but it was around the idea of Varna.
Yeah.
So how do we just find out what our Varna is?
How do we find out what is a Varna? How do you find out anything? By following the process, which is sitting around, chanting Hare Krishna. Yeah. That's what Chaitanya Dharpa Marjana, Bhava Mahadeva, Yuya Bhavana, Bhava Chandikana, Vidya yeah. So by chanting, she says, anything else, by your Baba, you just you follow the yoga, and automatically, in the first chapter of Jnana Vairagya, automatically comes from Bhakti Yoga. So you engage in the process, you chant Hare Krishna, and if you do that, after some time you begin to realize, yeah, Krishna is God. Yeah, he's the supreme controller of everything else, and I am. One time in San Francisco, they had a Sunday feast. It was a small game. No, the first one, first temple. And then Prabhupada had a Sunday feast, and he said, tomorrow or whatever it is, we're having some initiation ceremony. You're all invited to attend. So one person wanted to come like 2 or 3 times, but he was well dressed. He could come like to a suit or something. He said, Swamiji, can I also take initiation? And the devotees were thinking that Prabhupada would say, well, you should come to learn, get some more knowledge, and learn things first before you do. So Prabhupada said, yes, you can take initiation tomorrow, but you must answer 2 questions. Who is Krishna? The guy thought a little bit, he's God, he's the supreme controller, God of everything. I said, correct. I said, who are you? And he thought a little bit, but Prabhupada. I'm the servant. Yes, you can be initiated. Sambandha, right? I sent out my applications to all these places. The Bank of Piggy answers back and says, okay, we saw your application. If you want to work for us, go to, what is it? 1025 Main Street, Suite 917, 10 o'clock on Thursday, and then, we'll get you engaged. Okay. You don't know if I'm going to be a bank teller, an accountant, a security guard, a manager, none of that stuff. You don't know your Varna, right? But you know, they pay, I work. Sambandha. This is God, I'm serving. So first initiation, that's basically what's happening. You figure this out. I serve, and Krishna wants me to, this is my service. I chant 16 hours, follow the courses. And then you go on chanting and everything else and associating with the devotees, following the process, serving the deity, and doing different things. And after 1 year minimum, you figured out, hey, I'm a Brahmana. I like to hear and chant, I like studying, reading, and all this kind of stuff. Okay? I'm a Kshatriya. I just really, I can get people organized. I can get them so that they're taken care of. They surrender to me, I take care of them, and people follow me. Okay. So it goes on, and you begin to get some realization, roughly speaking. Vaishya, Kshatriya, Brahmana, and woman. Yeah. Street garden. You look at the tennis, it's a ladies' garden. We need volumes of ladies' garden about Prabhupada's books. You can figure out, okay, these are my things. So then you take the second initiation, or if you're Shudra, you don't need it. Right? You bring back to Godhead just by following first initiation and following other people. Let them break their heads. Let them pay the bills. Right? It's communism. The Shudras. But then everybody else, okay, I have one disciple, he was the vice president and everything else. And so everybody's saying, man, you should take second initiation, even his enemies. So he did. Because he's the vice president, you should, You know, it wasn't going to be a people pujari. Okay. So you can naturally follow the process and you can understand the information. And it goes on being refined more and more as time goes on. And then eventually you come, Brahman, deities are spiritual, this and that, Paramatma. And that's when you become a Goswami, right? And that's when you start talking to the deities, right? You're doing something, some nonsense, and you go in front of the deities and you look up, and they're looking back at you. Like, or how you come in and just not statues, they're spiritual. The Brahman can talk to you and communicate intelligence to you. That's Goswami. Women and men and children, everybody has to become a Goswami. There's no question about it. And later you become a pure devotee. But men formally take the ashram, right? Ladies, it's informal. These ways of indicating this and this comes. Everybody's clear about this. So, whatever, existing brahmana, sannyasi, whatever, and then you become pure devotee. In all these stages you are described. That's basically you begin to engage in devotional service, channel Krishna, have experiences, get insight, inspiration, read from Prabhupada's book, what people are supposed to be doing. Okay, and you become initiated. That's the beginning. Then after 6 more years, okay, then you take sannyas, which is, I'm very strict on. Sannyasi, nothing more than totally strict Brahman. Yeah, this is my line. So Prabhupada would give sannyas after 6 years to people who would follow them very strictly. Okay?
I just remember my original question.
Okay.
It is in line with this.
Yeah.
When Prabhupada says he's looking for brahmanas,
Yeah.
did that mean he was creating brahmanas in terms of their nature was changed?
So when Prabhupada said he was looking for brahmanas, making, creating them, he said this is all in line with the acharyas. He said we are looking for first-class men and giving them first-class habits. So somebody, because of his karma and everything else, eating, smoking, everything else, whatever going on, everything else, but as soon as he hears the truth, he's honest. He's honest with himself, and he says, yeah, okay. And so then he starts to take up the process, and he becomes first he's already a first-class person because internally he's honest about the previous karma, and then very quickly becomes requires the habits, the conditioning like that. Christian priests were talking with Prabhupada many times. One time, 2 Christian priests were talking to Prabhupada in Los Angeles, and Prabhupada right away they go to Varna-ashram, right? And talk about the system, And then talk about the level of devotees. So some people, Varna-ashram, what is it, Varna? And so after the discussion, one of the priests, and they were addressing Prabhupada as Your Excellency. Your Excellency this question, Your Excellency that. And in the Catholic Church, this is very fixed. And so I asked one Catholic devotee, what is the term Your Excellency? Like we say, Your Holiness, Your Grace. I said, that's for a cardinal. There's the Pope, the cardinals, the bishops, the priests. They couldn't give Prabhupada the same title as the Pope. That's not improper. But they were looking at it as a priest or a bishop. They were looking at it as, So the guy said, Your Excellency, you're talking all about these lawyers and everything else. I said, are you training second-class people? He said, next question, are you training lawyers? And Prabhupada said, I have not yet got facility. No? I have not yet got facility. Yeah, if I get the chance, I can train these people. But he understood. Well, not really yet. So maybe we'll stop here. Anybody wants to talk individually? And now, there's one mantra at the time of death that will draw you back to Godhead. And that mantra is, Sarira Vijay. That's right, okay.
His Holiness Hanuman Preshak Maharaj ki jai.
Yeah.
Huh?
Hare Krishna. So we thank Maharaj for wonderful wisdom, the knowledge, the practical application for this community. Maharaj is very essential. It's small as well. We have to be careful also to figure out how to navigate through those channels. It's very important as well. We are being here and messages now. Hare Krishna. Maharaj is very Prashad. We also like to welcome.
I've never been on the I've never been
After long discussion, finally able to make it. We are so happy that he is here. Wanted to bring him so early in the game, but at least here he is so happy. And we always talking with Prabhuji, so he's always up to the speed what we're doing here. We also need a lot of help, support from him. And we want to help him also in both ways. We always looking for his blessings.
I'll be here
for us.
11.
We come become a wonderful community as well.
11:30.
We always believe that we are extension of that Chandi because that is not different. That's homeship here. And we also think he's also blessing us very strong. So you are bringing all the blessings for us from Varakmati. So thank you, Prabhuji, for being here. We are so happy that maybe we will work together to make this such a wonderful community where everybody is happy here. Thank you.
Let's say 3 Haribol for Prabhuji.
Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Hari Bol! So we're going to have prasadam, and then after that we'll be having a Bhakti Riksha convention where all the Bhakti Riksha members, leaders, and presidents all involved in a panel discussion. Let's have prasadam. We're going to have Maharaj and Prabhuji might go for the conference. Hare Krishna.